This is a position that was sent to me by one of my students because he made a mistake in this position over the board and wasn't entirely sure why it was such a mistake and wanted to know the logic behind the cube action here so that he would be less likely to make the mistake in the future. So let's see, first of all, if you would make a mistake. It's red on roll, and should red double? If red doubles, should blue take or drop? So anytime, by the way, I say what's the cube action, that's what I mean. Should the player on roll double or not? And then if he does double, should the other player take or drop? So give it a little thought. Okay, let me say first that every time I show you a position, or anyone shows you a position and asks you, there is a quiz factor involved. What does that mean? That means that because we're showing it to you, you are more alert. You are more likely to find the right answer. Over the board, if you were playing this game, you very likely might just roll here without giving it much thought. That you maybe should be doubling. Why? Because this is a terrible double for money. Let me just show you. This would be a beaver for money. Red isn't winning by that much. This is a close game. He's got some shots that makes it interesting, but actually red isn't winning. It's just that he's got a few more gammons, and it's a highly volatile position. This would be a beaver for money, which means that if the score were 0-0 to 7 or 0-0 to 11, 11 away, or one of those scores, it would still be a very, very bad double. So it's the score that makes you think about doubling here. Are you more inclined to double? And by the way, the right process that we teach as far as how to consider your cube action is to always start with the score. What is the score? What is your opponent's take point? What is the value of gammons if you turn the cube and if you don't turn the cube? And what is his recube vig? How likely is he to redouble you once he gets the cube? How strong is it for him to redouble you? Which is all a function of the doubling window. It's going to change how soon you may or may not turn the cube. Changes quite a bit depending on the score. At this particular score, this is a big double. And again, most people don't think of it over the board. So how do you know why you should have a big double at this score and it wouldn't be a double, a very, very bad double at many other scores? Well, it takes study. It takes some thinking through this. But I want to first show you how I would know and what makes me not have to wait for a quiz factor and over the board be alerted that I might have a double. The first thing that alerts me was way before I got to this position. As a matter of fact, on the opening roll of the game, that's when I think about the score. I might have an opening 3-1, and I might sit there and stare at the table before I move it because I want some time to think, okay, what's happening at this score? What's going on with the cube and checker play? How does the score affect that? It could affect my opening roll. I would play very differently if I'm losing or winning at this score. Many of my opening rolls, I don't play it purely like gammon go or gammon save, but I'm going to be more aggressive when I'm losing at this score than if I'm winning at this score. And other scores, it makes a huge difference on how I play the opening roll. But it also, once I solidly have in my mind that I need to activate gammons here. What does that mean by activating gammons? I know that the gammon value, if I turn the cube, the value of my winning a gammon is much higher when the cube is on 2. Why? First of all, I just know the numbers. I've studied it. But if I turn the cube, I'm 4 away from winning the match, and a gammon wins me the match. And if I don't turn the cube and I do well on this next roll or soon, and I get lots of gammons, the gammon value isn't as high, and if I really do well on this roll, I've lost my market. I could have a drop on the next roll very easily if I make this point, if I hit this checker and he doesn't come in, if I hit both checkers, and we'll get into the odds of these things very quickly. But I know that I could easily lose my market, and I could easily get to the point where I'm very, very sorry I didn't double because I could win the entire match by winning gammons. Now, again, most of us don't remember and know exactly what all gammon values are, but it's an easy shortcut to know that if you're 4 away when the cube is on 2, the gammon value has to be very high because it efficiently takes you to winning the match. If you're 5 away and the cube is on 2, a gammon takes you to Crawford. Taking you to Crawford is an additional bonus that the gammon gives you. So in those situations, the gammon values are usually very high also. They're not as high as when they give you a win. Usually when they give you a win, it's going to be somewhere very close to 0.1. It's really actually 0.98 here, and when you don't double, the gammon's only worth 0.6 because you win 2 points. It does take you to you're 3 away, and a gammon would take you to 1 away. So instead of winning the entire match, you're winning 2 points. You're winning 2 points. Doesn't take you to. It takes you to 2 away. I'm sorry. So a gammon only takes you to 2 away. It doesn't even get you to Crawford. So it can't be worth as much. It's still worth pretty much. It's pretty good to be winning 5 to 3, but nowhere near as much as when you turn the cube. So how do I know I should turn the cube here? How do I know that my gammons are increased so much? The first thing I do is, looking at this position, I can look that I have 1, 2, 3 builders for this point. 3 times 3 is 9. There's usually 9 pointing numbers if all the doubles work. Double 2s works. Double 4s works. Double 5s doesn't. So that's 8 pointing numbers. So 8 pointing numbers on this point. Oops, double 1s also work. So you look for other numbers. So I have 9 pointing numbers that make this point. How many numbers that don't make this point also hit this? I can go through all the numbers, but actually there's a pretty good shortcut here. If 2s, 4s, 5s, and 1s will hit this checker or this checker, because there's a lot of numbers that are going to hit 2. If I hit this and this with there's some jokers, of course, like double 2 that hits this and makes this point. Double 1, you switch and you hit this one. But aside from the jokers, double 4 looks like a pretty big joker that makes this point and this point. Aside from the jokers, I just know I'm going to hit either of these checkers almost all the time. The only numbers that don't hit one or the other are a 3 or a 6. So I immediately know that double 3, double 6, and 6, 3 are the only numbers that don't touch either of these checkers. And that's pretty much what I'm going to be doing as much as I can to attack. That's a lot of numbers. That means that there's 4 numbers that don't touch these checkers, and that means there's 32 out of 36 rolls where one of these 2 checkers at least is going to get hit. With all that volatility, that's a major reason to turn the cube. This is a highly volatile position where the entire game changes on the next roll. And I have something in the back of my mind that I learned from my first professional teacher, Kit Woolsey, many, many years ago. And in fact, it was so important, I've recorded this quote and I've shared it with people on the Extreme Gammon, not Extreme Gammon, but the USBGF Facebook page. Kit Woolsey, rolling without thinking about the cube happens all the time, and it is the single most common and costly error backgammon players make. The more volatile the position, the more correct it is to turn the cube, particularly if you have some kind of overall advantage. This is that position. It's highly volatile. The fact that you really don't have a strong overall advantage is wiped out by the fact that what happens with gammons here. There are other scores. If you were 2 away, 4 away, this would be an even bigger double. It still happens to be a take because blue just seems to win this game a lot. There's lots of times where you hit and he still anchors. And there's those 4 rolls that you don't hit, you're in really big trouble. But even rolls that you just hit this checker or just hit this checker, he's got game. He could either hit back or still escape, and you still have problems with these back checkers. But to answer my students' question, how do I know enough to not miss this cube? It's largely Kit's quote that I don't want to miss a highly volatile cube. My antenna is up higher in volatile situations. What is volatile? Volatile are the kind of positions like this, where something big is about to happen on this roller, could easily happen, or it could swing either way very, very quickly. In these volatile situations, one of the main things that stops people from cubing is for some people the glass is always half empty, and they see the times that they don't hit this checker, and they look much bigger and bolder to them, or they see the time when they hit and they get hit back, and all they see is all the ways they can lose this game. Well, then I know people who are optimists. They know all they see is how they win this game. You can't be either. You need to have the glass half empty and half full. You need to see how you can win and how you can lose, and that in this position, when you did that, you wouldn't double at a normal score. But because your antenna was up at this score that you need to activate the cube because you're losing, it's a very tricky score. But one of the things about it, think about this: when you give the cube to blue, and he's now holding a 2 cube, and you're 4 away from winning the match, and he's 3 away from winning the match, how likely is it, how soon is he going to give you this cube back? If things don't go well, it's very unlikely, unless he really rolls jokers and you really roll terrible, it's very, very unlikely that you're going to see this cube back very soon, because it wipes out gammons. If things are going well, he's maybe in a position where he might be able to win some gammons, but you can snap up this cube pretty easily when he recubes you, because your take point is 18%, actually 18.5%. And again, should you be expected to know that? Maybe. Good players have memorized this. I've memorized it. But it's not that hard to figure out that if you drop and he's winning 1 away, 4 away Crawford, that you've got to win 3 games to stay in this match, and you might win a gammon along the way. And if you know your match equity tables, you'll know that it's around 18.5%. So when you have such a low recube take point, you've got a big incentive to take any recube. Also, gammons would be worth nothing. It's just a matter of winning the game. So you're not as likely to see the cube back. By the way, if the score is reversed, the recube take point would be 40%. So that's one reason why you would never give the cube here if you were the one who's winning 4 away, 3 away. Let's change the score. Same exact situation. And it would be almost about as big a blunder as you could make, a 0.9 blunder, to give the cube if the score was reversed. So don't get mixed up on who's who and who has what when you're looking at these cube actions. By the way, I will show you one more thing because I think it's always interesting. Let's go back to the right score. I always love to look at dice distribution as a check to see if I forgot anything, a really, really good or really, really bad roll. Analyze, dice distribution. The graph shows it much easier for me. As I said, double 2, double 4s are your big jokers. Double 1 I mentioned is great. And then you got your middle-ish rolls, which aren't that great or that terrible. They're sort of in the middle, but look, I can see they're just eyeballing. There's a lot more rolls that are pretty good. These are all the rolls that hit. Then that hit 2 or make a point or something good. And then you got your rolls that has the 6s and 3s in it. Look at this. Every single roll that is red has a 6 or a 3 in it. That means you're not hitting at all with these 3 numbers that I mentioned, although one of the numbers that doesn't hit is double 6 still is a pretty good roll. You puts you way, way up in the race and gives you pretty good winning, much better than the 2 anti-jokers that you have, the double 3 and the 6-3. So I've only got 2 really bad rolls, 2 great rolls, a bunch more pretty good rolls. At this score, that's more than enough. But another reason that I'm looking at this is to see if I miss something. Every now and then there'll be a big line going down or a big line going up that Didn't occur to me. I didn't, you might not realize at first that double 1 is such a good roll, because lots of people take double 1 and they make the 4 point from the 6 point. If you think about it, you would need to hit both checkers and put them both up. You would hit the 7 point and make the 4 point with 2 and then look around for the next one. It's close, by the way. I looked at it. You either make this point or slide up. Either one is pretty good. Anyway, I hope, if nothing else, just seeing Kit's quote to remind you that in really volatile situations, your antenna should be up more about giving the cube. And now you've seen how I think about the cube process. What's the score? What's the value of gammons? And then I use a projection of what's likely to happen on the next roll. How good are the good rolls? How bad are the bad rolls? What's likely to happen to the gammons and to the wins after this next roll? And when it's really, really volatile and I'm not quite sure, I'm often going to turn the cube just because Kit told me to. And I'm often unhappy when I do that, but as long as I'm happier more often than I'm unhappy, as long as the glass is a little bit more full than it's a little bit empty, in the long run I'm going to come out ahead. Hope you enjoyed the lesson. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye.